So today's an exciting day. I am so grateful to be here with Kim Evans, who is the Executive Vice President and Head of Corporate Sustainability, Inclusion, and Social Impact at Northern Trust. Kim, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're going to have a very important conversation about understanding the current talent landscape, which seems to be changing quickly all the time. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say, especially because before, that we started recording, you were talking about how amazing it is to work at Northern Trust and how even during this challenging time, really rooted in real core values and this and that. And while I know that's not the whole picture, I'm sure it ties into it. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But before we jump in, can you just share a little bit about why you care so deeply about your people? And was there anyone, a person or a situation in your life that really aspired you to ascend to be an executive vice president?
Thanks so much, Sheryl. And I'm really looking forward to sharing here. And when I think about a person who has really inspired me and someone who has always put people at the center of every decision, whether it was personal or professional, the person I think about is my mom. And really, she's well known in the family today for even saying, like, even children have the right to have an opinion. It's just how are we going to shape them and help, nurture their thoughts and opinions. But my mom, one of the very distinct memories that I have, it's both a fond memory and kind of a powerful one, just in terms of what shaped me and my experiences as a professional and personally. But growing up, we grew up in rather modest, humble beginnings, and it was my mom raising me and my two brothers, twin brother and an older brother, and different challenges throughout our growing up. But the one thing that was constant through everything I can remember is my mom was always helping, whether it was family members, neighbors, people in the community. And even when it hurt to do so, like, we didn't have a lot, we didn't have excess by any means, but I always saw my mom sharing. I always saw her lending a hand. I always saw her giving. And it is really kind of the practice of my mom today. She's still with us. She's over 80 years old. So grounded in my upbringing and how I've just navigated life has been about, taking care with people. So that has bled over into my professional life as well. And not to mention that, if you're going to drive performance of the company, unless the company is 100% a robot, which there aren't many companies that are, but in the companies and fields that I've chosen to practice, they're professional services firms, and so it's full of people that either drive, that are driving the performance or that you're working with to deliver for your clients, etc. So a people centered, a human centered set of practices, best practices, makes sense to me.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I'm sure your mom is extremely proud of you. And hopefully you will tell her that you did this. I'm sure you tell her all the time, but tell her that you were on this podcast and that she was a source of inspiration. I don't think moms ever get tired of hearing that.
I think you're right. And she does know, every time I am speaking about her in reference to my work. Last time I told her, I said, Mom, I was at a conference and I had a chance to give a mom story, a Juanita Evans story, and she was like, "When am I gonna start getting paid for
I know.
these?"
You're like, okay, I'll pay you in a sandwich. We'll go to lunch.
Yes,
That, well, it sounds like she has a sense of humor too, which is amazing.
she
And
does.
so, and then, so one more question before we get into the topic at hand. And, of course, I have to ask, being a mental toughness and high performance coach, and that, what has been the mindset that's allowed you to keep going? Because a lot of times, especially if you're watching or listening and you were just seeing Kim for the first time, you're like, wow, she's an executive vice president. It must have been easy. And we all know that it's never kind of easy, especially if you're an only, you're a woman, you've probably been the only women in many rooms, and sometimes the only, I've talked to people that are double, triple onlys. And so it does take a certain level of resilience and mindset. So I'm not sure if that was something that your mom also instilled, but when things got a little started to go sideways a little bit or a little challenging, what's been the mindset that's allowed you to keep going?
And yes, this too, Sheryl, is a mom, comes from a foundation from mom and really some experiences that we had growing up. And so I call it like, let your why find the way. And so growing up, again, I talked about our modest, humble beginnings. One of the experiences that really just has been with me throughout my life, but I would say helped me make the decision very early in my life that I was going to do whatever it took to succeed was I have fond memories of going to the grocery store with my mom and my twin brother and my older brother sometimes, and watching my mom, kind of add up, as she was putting things in the cart or putting things in the basket, kind of add up like what we could afford, what we couldn't afford. And inevitably, although we were walking through the store and she's doing that as we go along, when we get to the counter where it's time to put everything on the belt, she starts putting things back. And I noticed most of the things that she was putting back, it wasn't stuff for us or stuff that we needed, but it was stuff that she thought was extra for her. And so she would put it away. And that was so, it left an indelible mark on me that made me say, like, at 6 years old, I made a decision that if I could ever succeed enough, make enough money where my mom never had to put a single thing back, that I would do it. And I will tell you that that memory, that thought, the idea that one day I would make enough money, that was my why finding the way through all of the challenges of, working in a financial services industry, obviously male dominated. I didn't have a financial background, academic or otherwise, in terms of social network. Having to find people that would teach me and be patient with me and spend the time with me to help develop me. I thought it was all worth it from that day to this one, to know what my why was. And my why was fulfilled, or is being fulfilled, because my mom is pretty much a spoiled brat at this
Yeah.
moment. So, but just seeing the joy on her face now that her children have, grown up and are successful, and we can do things for her that she was not able to do, for us or for others, from that perspective, financially. Just seeing the joy that comes from that, it's all worth it. There was nothing too big to overcome.
Yeah, I love that story so much. And she deserves to be spoiled. So,
She definitely does.
and also, I mean, that really makes you so world class, and you probably already know that, but after 20 years working with world class athletes and Olympians, they're similar to you in that they're not just motivated by the medal or the endorsements or all those things. It's just like you weren't necessarily motivated by the money. You were motivated by your mom not having to put something back.
Yes.
And you're like, that will never, I mean, that's like a rule that you created for yourself. And so for those who are listening or watching and listening, thinking about what is not just your why, but like I write about in my book, like who's your who? Like your mom was your who. And so that really gives you some courage because that is bigger than anything. If someone said, you don't have an education in finance, or you're not this, or you're not that, or you're not a man, or you're not, or whoever, that your who and your mom is bigger than any of it.
Yeah. And I will tell you, Sheryl, like when we talked about that, the why and the who, that really resonated with me because every time I came across like some major juncture in my career where I could have made the decision, the whole fight or flight syndrome, right? Like I could have made the decision, well, you know what, maybe that is not for me, or maybe, you know what, I shouldn't be going for that extra this or that. I really would think about like, yes, I've got to be able to make a certain amount of money to, do some of the things that I want to do in my life, but for my mom. And then I just thought, like, well, what would be acceptable for me to tell her why I couldn't help her? And
Mhm.
there was never anything and I asked those questions of myself out loud, like, what would be acceptable for you? And so many people I know can translate that to their children, they can translate it to grandparents, they can translate it to their spouses, but what would be acceptable for you to tell this person that you love so much that you couldn't do it? And I couldn't come up with any good answers. So it was like, well, stay in the game.
Yeah, and that's probably the PG version. I could just see you going, oh, hell no, I'm getting on that stage. I'm asking
Yes.
for that raise. I'm asking for the promotion.
Yeah.
Scaredy cat, that's okay. You can be in the room. Just be quiet.
Yeah.
Um, and also, you are already a world-class coach because one of the things that we learn in coaching is that is coaches and formally or informally, you're a coach as well, but coaches know how to ask the best questions.
Yeah.
And that question that you were asking yourself was really your rocket fuel. So if you're listening, replay, write down those questions, apply them to yourself. Um, so, so I really do want to understand a couple bullet points on the topic at hand, and that is really understanding our current talent landscape because there seems to be a lot of fear out there as far as, okay, AI is here, we're going to have to deal with it. Is it going to take jobs? And then also is leaders, what's the best way? Like, how is AI changing the talent landscape, which I'm sure you could write a book on. But whether it's about AI or not, where are we right now with the talent landscape? What can help the rising leaders who are, in a search right now or climbing? And then also, can you share a strategy or two that can help leaders who are trying to build out their high performing teams?
Yes. And so I think there are a lot of ways, obviously, Cheryl, to think about this. And I think um, I'll be the first one to say I don't have the answer. What I will share is a part of the solution set. And so, one of the things that I am often doing as a leader, both inside the organization and outside the organization, is I am constantly mining for talent and constantly looking in places where it might not be obvious that the talent would exist. And so the reason why I do that is talent is ubiquitous, but opportunity is not. And I know that from my personal experience. I said I didn't come with the academic financial background or even personal experience in nurturing or network that would help me in a financial services landscape. but I came with a bunch of other skills and mindset and experiences that would help me. So I know that there is talent virtually everywhere around us, in your organizations, outside of your organizations. We just have to be conscious of mining for that talent. And to your point around AI, I think you made another point around asking questions, is what questions are we asking to understand who is talented, and what skills they have that they could bring to us that I might not have, understood. Like I could go and hire an economics major. I could also hire a chemical engineer to do some work here in sustainability, and that may not be a far stretch. Or I could hire somebody who um, majored in social psychology, and they could do some great work in this space. So it's mining for the talent, asking the questions, understanding the experiences that will need to be a part of developing solutions, rather than saying you've studied it, you've done it all already, therefore I know you'll be able to be successful here. And the reason why that's not the case is because the environment that we live in is constantly changing. And so the skills and abilities I look for are connected to resilience, but the heart of resilience is being able to have adaptive capacity to learn, do something, and adapt it as you're applying it, versus this idea of change. Change is constant. You go from A to B to C to Z. No, it's adapting and evolving. That's what Gen AI is, right? Like that is what that is. And so if you look for people, if you look for talent that show those types of skills and experiences, I'm certain that we can bring them into untraditional roles where they would have lined up linearly. And whether they're using tools like AI or other solution sets to bring solutions for your clients and for your company and for external stakeholders, I'm certain that will you'll see those benefits, because you're looking for resilience, you're looking for adaptive capacity, you're looking for the ability to learn. As I say, learn as you go and learn as you grow. And growing doesn't happen without the learning. So you have to be mining for the talent all the time, because you're going to find great talent in places that you wouldn't have expected to do so.
Yeah, and I think you're an amazing example of that. So you're walking the walk. And I haven't heard that adaptive capacity and mining for that. And it seems like, well, two things. One is that seems like it's gonna require getting to know people and getting to know people, maybe skip level down, a couple skip levels, because there could be someone who studied something in school and they're okay at it. But I can't tell you how many times I've interviewed a leader who started in something and then someone did what you're talking about and said, "No, I want you over here." And they're like,
Yeah,
"But I don't have any experience," but they just went for it and it just opened up a whole nother,
yeah,
thing. So just that adaptive capacity and also getting to know people
yeah,
that are, not necessarily your direct reports. I love that mining internally. And it seems like also mining externally. My dad would hire people. I mean, it's actually kind of embarrassing growing up, but we'd be at a restaurant, someone had impeccable service, and he's like, "Do you want another job?" You
yeah.
know?
See, but that's your dad. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Your dad is mining for talent wherever you are, and then seeing those threads you can pull to like apply that skill, those transferable skills, or that ability to adapt to a situation, apply that in another set of circumstances. And many organizations, I would say, have some programs that do this formally. You know, they're rotational development programs, right? You do something over a period of 9 months, you know, in one group. I'm just saying, and those are great. They're great programs, but we select people to put in those programs to give them some of those skills and adaptive capacity. And I'm saying that some people are developing those same skills without having been in one of those programs. We just, you know, you just got to look for it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And then it seems like if you're a leader, to keep your eyes open and to get to know people, but also if you're a rising female leader, a rising leader, period, to just be open, to
You
just be
have,
open and give yourself permission to, if somebody does say you'll be good at this or you should try this, or even if it's not your degree, it's not your experience, it's not, just be open.
you have to be open, and I've followed the 3 R's, probably four with the bonus R, but um always developing my readiness, my resilience, and relevance, and using relationships to help me understand where I am on on those scales of readiness, resilience, and relevance. And when the opportunity comes, you know, you are ready, you can be relevant, you are resilient, knowing that maybe I don't have it all right at the beginning because I'm not an expert at this, but I've done this before and I can do it again. And yeah, so I kind of live on those principles of readiness, resilience, and relevance.
Yeah, I love. So if you did not write down those 3 R's, I would definitely pause this and write them down. And I think it's relevant for all of us, not just if you're an emerging leader, but if you're an executive, you're looking to create a board portfolio or just dial up your impact in your role. I just think that that is true for all of us. And so, are there any parting words? In other words, if we're thinking about talent and how it's changing, are there any parting words that we should remember that will, help us moving forward to build and motivate and sustain our high performing teams and people?
So I've thought about this because usually when you're doing something like this, what's the call to action, right? And so I've thought about this. I've actually prayed about it, and what came to me to, which is a part of how I kind of show up as a professional, as a leader. But I would even say more so as a female leader, it is important to seek value versus validation. We spend quite a bit of time trying to understand, you know, or presenting things in a way that someone else will validate who we are, what we've done, how we've done it. And you spend a lot of time looking for that validation and still don't really know what value it brought. So I'd say flip the script and seek value. And if you are not finding the value, that you have to make other conscious decisions about that, because validation is a long road that leads to disappointment, distrust, maybe even demise, that
Mhm.
we wouldn't want to acknowledge or experience. And so, if you're seeking value, you can avoid some heartaches, some disappointments, and some pain that comes along with growing your career.
Yeah, I love that so much. And that is really because the other you don't have control over. Validation. You might get it, you might not get it. You might get it when you do a bad job, you might not get it when you do a good job. So just that intrinsic value, and always, and I wish I could remember who the quote was from, but really, and I think it might have been when I was on my Peloton this morning, but you're always competing to be better than you were yesterday. And the
Mm-hmm.
competition is against yourself and to build value. So value against validation, your three, I call it your 3+1 R's. Uh,
Yes.
So much wisdom shared. So Kim Evans, Executive Vice President at Northern Trust, congratulations on all of your success up to this point, and I look forward to following your journey.
Thank you, Sheryl.